Now, I've always had a theory about politicians who cop it from both sides on an issue that they've probably, well, got the decision about right. And what did we see today? Exactly this. The avid lockdowners blaming the New South Wales Premier for leaving it too late.
She waited too long, there's no doubt about it. And that's the view of, look, you know, they don't only speak with one voice, but of many leading epidemiologists. You just have to look at history. We're 18 months into this crisis. We have some experience. At the beginning of the second long lockdown in Victoria, the same mistake was made. So you'd think that that historical lesson would have been learnt.
Talk about willing it on. Now, some of us who see very little gain in lazy lockdowns were arguing that Gladys had lost it.
That I am so disappointed in Gladys Berejiklian on her actions regarding this handful of cases of COVID in Sydney. I mean, for goodness sake.
Let me be honest to you, I am loath to heavily criticise the New South Wales Premier because in these endless crazy days, Gladys has been a shining light. But of late, this one variant has seen her and her team up and down like a yo-yo. Now, 2 weeks ago, the Premier, showing a bit of swagger, suggested we should do away with daily press updates on the number of overnight infections. Now, even on Friday, she was unable to mouth the L word.
Is there a reason why you're not using the word lockdown?
Oh, you can use whatever words you like, but what is really important is for me to explain to our citizens who is directly impacted.
But then it all changed yesterday. There was a spike in venue alerts and some evidence of 5-second infections, and the narrative had changed.
Given we are aiming to get to no community transmission, and as we roll out the vaccine, it is important that we get to that as quickly as possible.
Now, I am sorry, that has not been a regular mission statement for New South Wales Health, not publicly. But with Delta, that seems to be the aim. No community transmissions. What about living with the virus? And despite 3 million vaccinations in New South Wales alone, lockdowns are back. New South Wales can no longer hold the high moral ground on lockdowns. Today, the Premier denied she was delaying the inevitable.
Did you delay the decision to call a lockdown because you wanted to keep your reputation as being the Premier who keeps open and looks after the economy?
Can I say very, very confidently and strongly that any success New South Wales has had to date is because our government has to the letter followed the health advice.
All of that is so academic now because Sydney and several regions connected to Sydney are locked down with just one person in ICU, and that patient, by the way, is not on a ventilator. Now, a mass drug overdose in Bondi on Friday night saw more people in hospital from that than were in hospital from COVID-19. And what happens when you sound the panic alarm and say, it's lockdown time? Well, it encourages people to pack up and run away, with wide-scale reports of caravans and heavy traffic heading out of north, west and south of Sydney and into the regions just prior to the lockdown at 6 o'clock, no doubt with some of the virus on board as well. And the stupidity of panic buying is a process devoid of any regard for social distancing. Can someone please remind the panic merchants that lockdowns don't give you diarrhoea, but panic buying could give you COVID? As for the ABC types who don't lose a cent from a lockdown, you need to remember that. What do they think it is? Some kind of human drench, a lockdown that zaps all parasites in its sight? It's a blunt instrument that does so much social, economic and mental damage. Just ask any Victorian. And almost every time Australians have fought clusters and outbreaks this year, it's been because we've been importing new variants every single day in almost every capital city. Importing it. And then human error and stupidity come into play, a lack of official diligence. In the case of New South Wales with a limo driver, that's led to leakages. Enough. The rest of the Western world has achieved extremely high vaccination rates. Surely now's the time to say you can only enter Australia if you've had your 2 jabs from a vaccine approved by our TGA. And then we can nail this virus and we can relieve the pressure on expensive and widespread hotel quarantine as well and not lock down. It's costing billions a day. Now, this week in the UK, officials announced that visitors coming from amber status nations and had their vaccinations would not require quarantine. This is where Australia should be heading. We don't even have a plan for that. In Singapore too, they've turned COVID protocols upside down. Vaccinations are the key. Once you get jabbed, you can work, travel and shop without quarantine or even isolation. That's why we created a vaccination. They are treating COVID-19 just like the standard winter flu now, and that's about as dangerous as it's becoming there. Where's our plan? Where's the Australian courage in all of this? Or will Australia be on hold until a federal election is held? There's the real clue to all of that.